Howdy Pixies, welcome to a brand new episode of Lady Losing Her Goddamn Mind. This here is Sally Smith here to tell you about Gloom Bro, your new best friend.
I don't know why I did that. Okay, hi. Howdy Pixies, today is another video, no surprise here, about Limbo, my favorite Warframe in the game because I love to divide and conquer. Yeah. Not pillage this time though. Honestly, at this point I should just accept that I'm going to just have an entire series of Limbo builds and that no one may care but me. But I will be the single most vocal proponent of the Limbo army, okay? I will start the Limbo unit. God, okay. This is why all my videos are 10 minutes long. I can't shut up. Let's get to it. Okay, so this is another Helminth video using the Subsume Gloom, which is from Sevagoth, who is the 46th Warframe and was the most recently introduced frame in the game. Quick recap for anyone who doesn't know about the Helminth system. It is a system that allows you to add other Warframe abilities from sacrificed Warframes. It's very fun because it stabs them in the neck and then throws them on the ground and shoves them against the wall and, you know, I don't know, dissolves them. Yeah, so if you want to unlock that little pimple on the back of your orbiter, all you have to do is complete the Heart of Deimos quest, get to Entrati rank 3, which is the faction that is located in Deimos, then have MR8, build the segment which you buy from Sun, and wait 24 hours to build it, shove your first Warframe inside of it, and have a copious amount of resources. Yeah. Have fun. So, now that we got that little tidbit out of the way, fun fact time over. Why Gloom? What does Gloom even do? Gloom is an ability that will create a slow field that is focused around your Warframe, making you the central point, while also giving you HP regeneration based on kills, damaging of enemies, etc. This ability is channeled, meaning that it will remain on as long as you have energy, and can be regenerated with energy orbs and specific Warframe-based abilities and passives. As I mentioned in my last video, Gloom is an incredibly strong ability and not one to be overlooked when used for other frames. It synergizes well at pretty much any range that you use, increasing potency of other animation-based soft C effects, such as silence or shooting gallery, and with its own innate CC scaling with strength, it's a perfect addition to any damage-dealing frame with a solid energy regeneration, and wants a little bit more protection. On Limbo in particular, it goes a little beyond that. You're still probably wondering why Limbo has the Rift. What does he need Gloom for when he's pretty much immortal anywho? Gloom gives Limbo extra safety and beyond that diversifies his playstyle in ways that were locked to him before. Now, utilizing Gloom, Limbo can offer team-wide healing and support along with energy regeneration. Not only that, the slow on Gloom means that Limbo is no longer locked specifically to the Rift. Depending on just how you incorporate Gloom into his kit, this can make him a much more aggressive and a much more tactical Warframe, making certain aspects of content much easier for him to handle. Specifically speaking, Limbo is one of the better candidates for Gloom because of his passive, Rift Lock. This allows Limbo plane-based immunity, aka he can only be directly affected by enemies of the same plane as himself. So, if there is an enemy that is attacking him when he's in the Rift, and they are in the physical plane, the default plane, he cannot be directly interacted with. If he is in the physical plane, and someone who is trying to attack him is in the Rift, he will not be affected by that enemy. Also note that he can be dragged out of this by a few enemies such as Stalker and Nullifiers, and that some of these sim enemies won't be affected by the main CC of his base kit, Stasis, which is where Gloom comes in. But before we discuss that, we'll finish off with the second part of Limbo's passive, which is energy regeneration. Limbo has two ways of regaining his energy while using his passive. The first is by just pressing shift or whatever the dodge roll key is for you, and going into the Rift. Doing this, he will get X amount of energy per second for just sitting in the Rift. This does not directly affect Gloom, so it's not the most important aspect of his passive. The part that affects his passive is the fact that he can burst energy gain by killing enemies in the Rift, and this will affect both him and allies in the Rift as well. Every enemy will give him 10 energy upon death, and this overrides channeling effects being treated as mini energy orbs. So the more condensed, the more enemies you have in the rift with you, the faster you can regenerate energy, along with the likes of things like Arcane Energize, which makes them an incredibly efficient frame for using Gloom. And this is really important to note because even outside of Limbo, the Warframes that will best utilize Gloom are those with the capacity to regenerate energy without turning off the ability. So keep that in mind when considering other options for Gloom. The gameplay showcase will be utilizing 2 iterations of this build, edited slightly to fit different scenarios. But remember, there are many other ways that you can utilize this playstyle that are beyond this. For example, I've tried using Gloom as a replacement for every single one of Limbo's abilities, and every playstyle works. Try what works best for you, but note that the 2 iterations shown here are probably the quote-unquote safest in that you aren't sacrificing anything like scaling damage in Rift Torrent or the stasis failsafe in case you find yourself in a situation where energy has run low and you need to regroup. For while it is hard to be fully depleted with this build, it is not impossible, especially if you're doing something like Disruption. So keep that in mind. There are 3 different game modes that I used to test this build, all of which were Steel Path. The first is a Disruption that I did a level cap run with Life Water. The second is Defection, and the third was Survival. Note that these builds are not meant for defensive Limbo players. These are aggressive builds and are meant to be played for damage and for scalings. There are other builds to use if you're trying to do something like mobile defense, excavation, etc. There are 2 main differences between the builds, and that is in range and strength. Duration and efficiency are both relatively low for Limbo because the idea is to quickly create a field of death, increase your damage, wipe them out, move on to the next pocket. It is the Rift Assassin, Gloombro edition. So this is the version of the build that I used for Survival. And in this one, we go for a negative range so that we can have enough range to still have movement from the enemy. But since we have so much ability strength, the 95% slow means that once they finally touch the Gloom field, they stop moving. It's a 95% slow. So I can't have this one have too much range, or we end up running into the problem where the flow of enemies becomes too congested, too slow for us to maintain life support. So in this case, we just opted for more strength, which then allows for Rift Torrent and Rift Surge by association, to have a 93% damage increase per enemy. And considering we have negative range, this is really important because this means that fewer enemies will still get us into that 2,000-3,000 bonus damage range easily, which is super important the higher you get into a level cap and endurance run. So for the second build, we have 2 very slight adjustments. That is to the Exilus slot and the slot right here. And in those slots, we replaced the 2 mods with range mods. And I used this build for both the Disruption and for the Defection. This is because, unlike Survival, Defection and Disruption are modes that have constant flows that are unaffected by things like life support. So in this case, I'm okay with increasing our range so we have a higher field of influence so that we are protecting both ourselves and our allies better. We lose out on strength, but we still have 95% slow, because in order to achieve that, you just need 272% ability strength. The rest of the build is fairly standard. We have primed flow to compensate for the fact that this is a channeled ability, and so that we can spam Rift Torrent a little bit easier. Umbral Intensify to add more strength, Rift Torrent obviously to increase our damage as well, Fleeting Expertise so that we can get a little bit more efficiency to balance out our Blind Rage and Transient Fortitude, which we are shoving into ability strength. Alternate mods include Brief Respite for Aura, which I would frankly recommend, and the only reason I haven't done is because I'm lazy and do not feel like formatting again. Cunning Drift, Rolling Guard, Natural Talent, Speed Drift, Streamline, and Stretch. Situational mods, depending on how you personally decide to customize this build, could include the augment Rift Haven. This is the second safest build for Limbo, and debatably the safest for Limbo on Steel Path because of the CC effects that Gloom can put on Acolytes, where Stasis doesn't affect them. And with that, that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this gives you some ideas for builds yourself. If you liked the video, be sure to give a big thumbs up, follow the channel, hit us up on Twitch and Discord, and I hope to see you real soon in a stream near you. Bye!